Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Inverclyde Local Police Fire Scrutiny Panel. Lindsay, could you do a roll call, please?
Want apologies first?
Yes.
Apologies from Councillor Moran with Councillor Cassidy substituting. Apologies from Councillor Daisley, Councillor Flynn and Councillor Lowe. We'll now move to a roll call. The following members please indicate they are present at the meeting either in person or remotely. Councillor Brennan. She's on the list. Okay, I'll come back to it. Councillor Fogarty.
In the chamber.
Councillor Crowther.
Present in chamber.
Councillor McGuire.
Present remotely.
Robert Mackenzie.
In the chamber.
Councillor Cassidy.
In the chamber.
Councillor Reynolds. Councillor Wilson.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Brennan.
Present remotely. I've done something strange to my camera. Apologies. Sorry. I'm present and I can hear you.
Are there any declarations of interest?
Nope. I need to read you this statement, folks. Welcome to this meeting of Inverclyde Council's Police and Fire Scrutiny Committee. This meeting has been held remotely and also in person and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcast available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and the Data Protection Act of 2018. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with Council published policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded that they should follow the Council's established meeting protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who've also received invites to the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for that. We move on to performance management, agenda item number 2, Scottish Fire and Rescue Service Performance Report. Mark Gallagher.
Convener, could I just, with your permission, I'll just come in before Mark. Mark will be with us for a short period of time. Mark is a well-versed Inverclyde officer working in area for a number of years. Been our training colleagues borrowed him for a period of time, but we've managed to get him back. So Mark will be here until the start of 2022. So I will start with an apology with your permission. Mark and I intended to be in chamber today, but unfortunately there's been a rather pressing matter which meant that we've been shackled to our headquarters desk. So apologies to the committee, but we'll definitely be there in person for the next one. And just finally, before I bring Mark in, I believe it's Paul Cameron's last committee. We've always enjoyed really good relationships with our police colleagues in Inverclyde, and Paul's been absolutely superb for us and a really good ally to us, and he's been fundamental in bringing in those tasking meetings 3 times a week, which have borne really good fruit and built on the relationships that we've had. So, Convener, I just wanted to place on record my thanks to Paul and wish him well for the future. And I'll bring in Mark.
Here, here, well said. Agreed. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Convener, and thank you to all for today. It's an absolute pleasure to be back in Inverclyde after a short period away within the headquarters environment and taking up a national training role for the last 2.5 to 3 years. So it's really good to be back in Inverclyde. It's my pleasure to present this report to you today. I'm not going to do it verbatim, but I'll pick up the salient points, I think, through each of the headings, and I hope you've had the opportunity to have read that, and I'm open and willing to answer any questions at the conclusion of my report. So we'll start off with domestic safety and around accidental dwelling fires, and as you can see from the report, we have one up from the same period in Q2 21-22 period. And cooking still remains that key source of incidents that we are turning up to, with over 65% of them equated to cooking. But positive part of it is that we are now seeing a very, very high percentage of our incidents with no firefighting action is actually required at these particular incidents. And that's down to the protection that we've got within homes now with the heat and smoke detectors, and also the good engagement work that Scottish Fire and Rescue Service and our partners are involved in sharing that message about the importance of detection and that proactive approach to fire safety. Our operational crews and our community action team have carried out 119 home fire safety visits within this period, and 63% of 63 of these homes within the Inverclyde have received smoke detectors within the same period as well. So you can see that proactive approach to how we do our business. Accidental dwelling fires is the next heading, and we have remained static from the same period last year with one accidental dwelling fire. Again, looking at the indicators, that individual just required some slight hospital attention for their injuries. So again, that protection around about detection within the homes and a prompt response to the Fire and Rescue Service has minimised the amount of accidental dwelling fire casualties that we've had within that period in time. The person involved had slight smoke inhalation and was just taken to hospital for that precautionary checks, as previously stated. Unintentional harm and injury has seen quite a significant increase from the same period, looking at 23 within this period and 9 in the last period. But I'm just going to add a wee bit of context to that. A lot of their incidents are related to road collisions, and within those periods in the last couple of years, we've been in a period of national and local lockdowns, and we've seen a lot less traffic on the roads as well. So we're just kind of taking a bit of cognizance of that. However, we are starting to see a national trend throughout the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service of our role in assisting other services. And we're seeing the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service now working with our partners to open doors to gain access to people who are in need at that particular time. So that statistic is now showing an increase across the board in all of our local authority areas. But we continue to work with our partners within that environment. We continue to work with our schools in our road safety projects, and it's an environment we are very heavily involved in and committed to within Inverclyde, and we have been proactive within that messaging. The next part is about deliberate fire setting, and we've actually seen a decrease in that, which again is very, very encouraging for us as an organisation. But as the Commander had said there about our partnership with Police Scotland in that hub environment we've got now of information sharing protocols and are in place, has been pivotal in reducing the amount of deliberate fire setting we have within Inverclyde. That partnership approach is key to it. That intelligence is key to driving down the deliberate fire setting. And I think that became very evident, and it's not within this reporting period, and we'll report on in the next one, but the bonfire night activity down in Inverclyde this year was dramatically reduced, and that was through the real partnership approach, the working with the public protection team within the local council of Inverclyde, Police Scotland as well within that, and we have seen one of the quietest periods of Guy Fawkes on the 5th of November. So it's a positive step forward. Next one is non-domestic fire safety, and looking at the incidents within that. A slight increase, but not anything that's given us any real note of concern. And it's for us, it's about ensuring that we are looking at our trends around that. We have got an enforcement team who are very proactive in looking at each of these incident types, scrutinising it, looking for trends, looking for any patterns that has been identified. And on this occasion, there hasn't been, but we have committed our crews, our operational staff, and also our enforcement staff to scrutinise these incidents and carry out a post-incident audit of these particular incidents. And if they're applicable under the Fire Scotland Act, we would then carry out a post-fire audit under that Act as well. So it's just giving you the comfort and the confidence that we are certainly looking at all these particular incidents as well. Unwanted fire alarm signals have been up slightly in this reporting period. We did some analysis to kind of figure out where we were getting most of our calls from, and we were actually starting to see a slight spike when school started back after the kind of periods of summer period and also periods of lockdown. We are identifying that a lot of these were doing during the testing process, and finding out that then we were able to educate these individuals at that particular time about the proper testing processes that should be adhered to. And at that point, we saw that trend starting to fall down. So each unwanted fire alarm signal is scrutinised, looked at by our teams operationally. But within Inverclyde, we have a UFAS champion based in at Greenock Community Fire Station. And he has that job to scrutinise the data, look at analysis, look for some trends within it, and proactively engage with the duty holders, if applicable, to look at ways in which we can drive down the unwanted fire alarm signals. That concludes really the report in itself of where we are within that reporting period. But as we move into the next period, we move into what is called our winter tap, which is our thematic action plan. And that's really looking about, as we were in the bonfire season, about how we could look at that as a partnership. And as I've already said, it was very well received this year. And my thanks goes out to Police Scotland and the Public Protection team within Inverclyde for that proactive approach to the bonfire night. What we are looking at as an organisation as we move into the winter and the cost of living that is affecting us all throughout the whole of the UK and Scotland, and especially within Inverclyde, which I'm concentrating on today, is about any trends that will pop up from that. So we have done a national campaign around cost of living, about heating homes and how we as an organisation can help with that, but also predominantly looking at the safety aspects of that particular thematic action plan and how we can sit there as a partner and providing some education to our public. So that's what we'll be concentrating into the next quarter, and happy to answer any questions on the report today.
Thank you, Paul, for that comprehensive report. Good to hear the cooperation that happened around bonfire night. It seemed to have gone off relatively quietly. Colleagues, any questions for Paul? Councillor Crowther?
Thank you, Convener. If you just look at the unintentional injury in Harram, and while I welcome that the water rescue was at 0%, as winter approaches, and I know that we do have climate change, and it may well be that our dams and reservoirs may not freeze over, or the ice cover may be very, very thin. But do you go around the schools just to warn about the dangers of walking or treading on ice? And the other small issue relating to that is that while people may not go out onto the ice because it is too thin, there could be the cases where animals, i.e. dogs, wander onto it and then go through, and people are then tempted to go into the water. Do you make any recommendations through the likes of the schools on that?
Paul?
Councillor, it's a really, really good question, and I'm pleased that you've noted that. Thankfully in Inverclyde for quite a period of time now, and I hope this continues, that we've had no water related incidents at all, which is great, and also some comfort that one of our crew commanders that works in Greenock Fire Station undertook a piece of work probably about 12 months ago to have an incident response plan for all our inland waterways, and that was done in conjunction with partners in the local authority and police colleagues as well. So there has a lot of work been done around that. It's a really good question though, because actually a lot, as Mark's alluded to, a lot of our festive sort of fires in that winter is around the home environment, and people bringing in Christmas decorations to their house, and how we can make sure that they do that in a safe manner. But yeah, it's something we can speak to our community action team about to see if that's something that forms part of that messaging, because I don't know if Mark can give us, it's not something that I think normally forms part of that winter action plan, but it's certainly something we can consider.
Ruth?
That's right, thank you, Paul.
Ruth?
For you, Convener, just to add on to the answer previously given, Scottish Fire and Rescue Service do have a winter safety linked to water activities. I've just had a quick Google of it there. I remembered it, and I was just double checking my memory. Yes, there is a leaflet, so we can actually circulate that around the schools as well.
That's very nice, lovely. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth.
Yeah, that's I know there's certainly documentation around it. I was just thinking more about our engagement with schools, because now that we're back on a normal footing, I know certainly during the summer months prior to schools going for their summer break, we had engagement with, I think I might be underselling the team here, Mark, but I think it was circa 2,000 pupils across the 3 local authority areas. So there was a lot of work done there. So it's really pleasing to see the outcome that, you know, when we can make that link to there not being any water related incidents. But as I say, it's just whether we form that as part of our actual interaction with the winter tap.
Sorry, can I just add to that for Councillor, because thank you, Ruth. I just did the exact same as you and had a quick look on our website and saw those leaflets available. As a lead officer for the community action team, I'll take that on and ensure that when we are doing some school engagement, which will part of that winter tap, that we do ensure that those leaflets are put out and the messaging around about ice and water dangers within the winter time, because as the boss is alluding to, a lot of that is around about the summertime and swimming within waterways and reservoirs, etc. But it's something we'll take away for today, and I'll action that.
That's lovely, thank you.
Great question, John.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Clopperty.
Thanks, David. Mark, this question for you. I'm glad you touched upon previewing forward to the winter trends, and you mentioned the cost of living and the problems we might experience with getting a homes. And we know anecdotally, again from our housing association, for social landlords, that some people are actually deciding to disconnect their heating, officially disconnect their heating through, so they don't need to pay the daily standing charge. I just wonder if we've seen any illegal bypassing of meters in the area, because just that wee bit of worry about the illegal bypassing of mainly electric meters, that we did no harm before, and it's just going into this winter time. Are we seeing anything like that, or is it still very much one off in the identified area?
Thank you. I think it's a very relevant question, and it's something that it has achieved some national and local news, but not anything I am aware of within Inverclyde in the period that I've been back. I am aware of other incidents that we've been made aware of in other local authority areas, but not something that I've came across with Inverclyde. It's certainly something that we are attuned to. It's something we are providing guidance on. Our operational staff have that under that operational intelligence perspective, and if they do come across it in any particular way, it's certainly fed up through the stations and up through myself as a lead for prevention and protection, but it's not something that is apparent as a trend at all at this point within Inverclyde.
Thanks.
Any other questions, colleagues, for Paul? No, don't see any. Thank you very much indeed. Can we move on now to agenda item number 3, which is the Police Scotland Performance Report. Before I introduce Chief Inspector Cameron, we have Chief Superintendent Laura Waddell with us today. Would you like to address the committee, Laura? Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, that would be lovely if you don't mind. If people
No, not at all.
Indulge me for a couple of minutes. I thought it was a good opportunity to introduce myself to elected members and probably members of the public as well. So I took up post in mid-September. It's been a bit stop-start just for various other reasons since I took up post, but my background, I've got 26 years service, both with Strathclyde Police and Police Scotland. Most of my background in service has been within a CID and public protection environment, which I've always been very passionate about. I spent a period of time working in the major investigation team as a DCI, dealing with homicides, and thereafter I took the jump to go out and cross our legacy boundary in Strathclyde as it was at the time, and went and worked in Forth Valley as DCI out there, and from there I worked in Fife as Detective Superintendent, out to Edinburgh as Detective Superintendent, before coming back to Forth Valley, and then latterly up to the Scottish Police College, where I headed up a project to bring in a new appraisal system, a new promotion system, was involved in the early stages of that, an accelerated promotion system, a new diploma for our sergeants, and various other leadership development training for Scotland colleagues. And from there was then promoted to Chief Superintendent at Gatposh, head of local crime, and worked there with various portfolios like biometrics, crime audit, and done by HMI, delivering their recommendations, various other forensics, other portfolios, before taking up the post here in Renfrewshire and Inverclyde Division. So delighted to be back in local policing. Local policing has been at the heart of what I've done throughout my service, apart from my short stints in the MITS and subsequently up at the Police College. I've never worked in this division per se, although I did have a murder down here that I was SI Move for, Senior Investigating Officer, for a period of time. But you know, despite not having worked in this area before, it's quite clear to me there's a very good team. Both the legacy that Paul has left and Damien Kane is going to be the new area commander here, and we'll pick up that legacy and carry that forward. But Police Scotland has brought a lot of positives in that I've had the opportunity to travel about the country. There's an awful lot of good work that's on across the country. I can now bring my expertise and experience from across the country into Inverclyde in particular, and we'll be able to work on that and build on that moving forward. So really delighted to be here, really delighted to get to meet you in person as well, now that we're over that hill of the pandemic, and looking forward to working with the elected members, yourself, Regina, and partners as we move forward.
Thank you, Laura, and we do appreciate you coming along today. It's good to see somebody in person. I just wondered if any of my colleagues just wants to take the opportunity of asking Laura a question. I don't see anybody. No more thin ice, John?
No.
You were thinking
What's writing in thin ice? No.
You were thinking of some of your colleagues when you asked that question. But Laura, thank you very much for coming along. Thank you. Now move on to the rest of that agenda item, and it's in the safe hands of the Chief Inspector, Paul Cameron. Now, Paul.
If you don't mind, I'll kick this section off and then hand over to Paul. If that's
okay. You will? Okay, yes, right.
Yes, keen to be involved. So obviously, colleagues and elected members.
See who's in charge here.
Well, hopefully I've had the opportunity to read the report, you know, and of course from that is that we are seeing a decrease in terms of the number of crimes and incidents that we've experienced in the reporting period for Inverclyde. I would caveat that though, we're comparing with a 5-year average that is skewed because of the pandemic, but we're comparing with last year to date as well, which is also skewed because of the pandemic. So I do put that caveat to the performance data that you have in front of you. I intend to just pick out a few key highlights and then I'll pass over to Paul who'll give you a bit more in-depth view. So just in terms of the local policing priorities that have been set for Inverclyde, we have we're out for consultation for the next set of policing priorities, and it would be members and constituents can get involved in that process. But obviously drug supply and misuse is a concern for the community. We have 20 drug supply cases. There's more that are in the pipeline. We're waiting on forensic results coming back for those. So there is a bit of a decrease there, but we're confident that those forensic results will be positive for us and that we will be able to turn into detected cases in due course. And that continues to be a focus for us, particularly in terms of any information that we receive. We're really reassured by public feeding information into us that we can take action against. Violent crime then up 6.8%, which you will see on the overall and 5-year average, and you'll see that common assaults are up by 5.7%, serious assault by 9.4%, and serious assaults are down by 9.4%, and disorder incidents also down quite considerably by 32.5%, which is a real positive. Dishonesty in terms of that's down in terms of our 5-year average, and most of them are looking at thefts and shopliftings and frauds. Frauds are a particular concern for us just now, just in terms of a lot of activity has moved online, and that's a good focus for us. and there's been an awful lot of work done by Paul and the team in relation to shoplifting, and some really positive results out the back of the newly introduced exclusion zones, which Paul will talk you through. Housebreaking is down by 14.6%, albeit the detection rate for me is too low, and that'll be something I'll look to focus on moving forward. Road safety, obviously number of casualties fallen from 18 to 11, and we've had no fatalities during that reporting period there, but as I'm quite sure convener and elected members will have seen in the media, we've unfortunately had a fatality since that reporting period. A lot of proactivity with our road policing colleagues who come along to my morning meeting on a Tuesday, and that's our opportunity to be able to task them. But we've done a lot in terms of drink and drug detections for us as well, which really is very impactful in terms of road safety. And just finally, you'll have noticed that there's a very stark increase in the number of missing persons that we're dealing with. Real vulnerability around about missing persons, particularly that we've got more than 61% are under 19 years of age, so a real concern in terms of the vulnerability around about these individuals and positions that they can put themselves in. So again, that's something I want to have a really good look at moving forward. These are very impactful on our officers as well in terms of the time it takes to try and trace people. But understanding why people are going missing in the first place to try and prevent that will be a focus for us. And just finally, in terms of complaints, then quite a positive picture when you look at the volume of incidents in terms of the number of complaints that we've received, which totals 27, so sitting at 0.35%. 46 allegations being 28 non-duty and 18 relative to quality of service. So that's the main highlights I wish to pull out, and if you're okay, I'll pass over to Paul and he'll give you insight into the more detail that sits at the back of that.
And then both of you can handle questions at the end.
Exactly. Thank you.
If that suits you. Paul, welcome. I'd just like to say Councillor Reynolds dropped out. Thank you very much for letting me know. I hope she's okay. Paul, this is your last meeting here. On behalf of myself, the current convener, and the previous convener, Councillor Tommy McVeigh, who you saw a lot more of than you did of me, thank you very much for your service to Inverclyde. We know you've had a lot of very important and successful initiatives while you've been here. We are particularly impressed with how you've coordinated with our community wardens, the morning meetings, the exchanging of intel, which has really worked well. Your initiatives on shoplifting, which has moved forward, and also your activity on drug dealing and drug misuse. So thank you very much for your time here. On behalf of all my colleagues and Councillor McVeigh, we wish you all the very best in the future, and good luck with your career, and we hope you get promoted soon.
Okay, well, thanks very much. I will just say very quickly then, so it's been an absolute privilege being the commander for Inverclyde. I know my own team are sitting here me saying this, but it is a tremendous place to live and to work. I've enjoyed every second of it. Working with the fire service, the council, community wardens, it's just been outstanding, and I don't have any bad thing to say. I'm leaving with really good memories and enjoyed every second of it. And yeah, the drug dealing and the shoplifting, there's lots of people in the jail, and I'm happy about that. They deserve to be in the jail, so I'm happy about that. So you can expect this. Okay, so just I suppose the last bit for me then is just about some of the development stuff that's ongoing in Inverclyde at the moment. So I know you've heard me talk about exclusion zones and actually getting it across the line to actually get exclusion zones introduced to Inverclyde. There's no easy feat. It has taken us it's taken us longer than I would have hoped, but we're there. And I can say that we are now using the exclusion zones. Still in its very early days, I think this is week 2, but we have a number of people, I won't put a number on it because it's not about numbers, but there is a number of people who have exclusion zones set against them, which is brilliant, because these are individuals who are causing no end of grief for businesses in particular in this community. So yeah, we'll continue working on that. Watch this space. That will be a huge success for Inverclyde. The next part of that, link to that is, pardon the pun here, but the radio link. So radio link, we've got that on a trial period. With 16 large businesses in Inverclyde signed up for this. This allows the commercial premises to communicate quicker with each other. And this is about known individuals who are stealing from their premises or who have caused no end of grief for them. So they can talk to each other. The good part about that is they can also talk to us because we have a radio and we're there. The exclusion zones will complement this because if you don't have an exclusion zone works, basically the courts or the duty officer and the police, we arrest somebody, we get an exclusion order against them. Exclusion zones are very specific about what streets are allowed to enter. And there's a map, it's a really nice map, it's a nice coloured map. The bit in yellow is the best bit, so that's the exclusion zone that we've got having to get. So these individuals have that clear in their bail conditions, you're not allowed to enter it. So they don't need to go in, so they do not enter that area at all. If they enter that area in any way, they'll get arrested and they'll be custodied and they'll go to court. So that's really good. So in the radio link, ties all that together. It is on a trial period. Obviously my success will take that on and I'm sure we will get a lot more premises signed up for this because the benefits are really quite significant. Naloxone, so I know we spoke about naloxone the last time I was here and it was kind of getting rolled out at that stage. So all the community police officers here now will actually be on naloxone, that's good. And we're working on the programme now to get our response officers and CID officers all the be and that will happen in due course. It just takes a bit of time to get people trained up and the kit issued to them. But community police officers walking about the streets right now having naloxone, which is brilliant because we've wanted that for quite a long time in Inverclyde. Schools, just come back to the fire safety talks. So we've got an absolutely tremendous relationship with the fire service. Probably the best relationship I've had in anywhere I've ever worked. And I'll need to try and replicate that in the new area that I've moved to. But fire safety talks, so we've delivered fire safety talks to school Stevens and St Michael's. And I know there's plans to extend that to other schools, so we'll continue to do that because, as we know, wildfire remains a problem in Inverclyde, and this is just part of the solution to educate our young people about the dangers and which that brings. So we'll continue doing that. Operation Close Pass, Councillor Crowell, I think it was yourself who raised that last time, so I did listen to you, and I got road policing colleagues down. And we carried out a day of action, Operation Close Pass. It's basically when vehicles drive past a cyclist too close and it's dangerous. So we done a day of action about that. A number of warnings were issued, a number of people were charged, a number of road traffic offences were detected. Again, it's not about the numbers, it's about the education and making the roads safer. So that so we've done that.
That's fantastic, thank you.
So we've got that done. And then lastly, two last people. Morton Academy, so we've got a great relationship with Morton Academy. We've still got street football down at Port Glasgow. That is definitely still delivering results and reducing antisocial behaviour. Still have antisocial behaviour issues, but significantly reduced because of the work that we're doing there. We also delivered an online safety advice evening to approximately 200 people, as adults and children and their parents, about online safety. So we've done that. That was very well received, I have to say, and we're going to repeat that again several times. And the last bit for me is Operation Moonbeam in terms of the bonfire night. So I was here for the bonfire this time round, so I was quite determined I wanted to be here to see it through. Because if you remember 2 years ago when we had all the problems in Inverclyde, I was determined that last year we were very successful because the work that we've done with the fire service, community wardens and Rasheen Berlin and Martin McNabb, I have to say, we are outstanding. We used common sense approach last year. We did risk assessments, dynamic risk assessments on bonfires that were being built at the last minute that we couldn't dismantle because it wasn't safe to do so. And we adopted that same approach this year. Compared to where we were 2 years ago, when we had officers going through the streets with riot shields, it was a huge success this year. We've now clearly demonstrated we've got a model moving forward that we know works, and I'm very confident moving forward that the last 2 years will be replicated, hopefully, for as long as we can make this work. It'll still need tweaked every year, of course it will, but it's to give you that reassurance, because I know there's a lot of worry about that. No arrests, and we were able to deal with it using Inverclyde officers exclusively. So we didn't actually require to have anybody else come in, albeit, I know you know, we did have them if we needed them, but we didn't, thankfully. And that's it for me. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Paul. I attended a board meeting of the Latfield Housing Association last evening, and their compliments were paid to the police, the fire service, Martin and Roisin, our people, in terms of how well the bonfire night was handled. It was noticed. Colleagues, any questions for both Laura and for Paul? Councillor Fogarty?
Yeah, thanks. Just really get one question, and that's on section 5. Can I say I was really good to hear what you said at the end there about having your sort of open online session and how many people attended that. I think that's excellent. And you know, for me myself, you know, having 2 daughters and 2 sons, I can only say that it's quality the way forward. So well done on that. I see we've got an increase of 11.5% in sexual crime, but I know that a lot of that will be legacy as well. So I can see 1/3 of it is on recent reporting, probably legacy stuff. It's to try and get a handle on what is the more recent stuff. Are we seeing an increase in general terms, or is that increase purely down to the hereditary stuff, like all that we all know about? We've known about for a couple of years now, so
Yeah, so as I said, obviously my introduction, public protection, I'm really passionate about, and over the years, you know, and having worked in that area of business myself and dealt with victims of sexual crime, it's a really big step to come in and report something like that to the police, you know, and to ensure that we get the proper support round about. So I'm always really encouraged when we see an increase in reporting, whereas we don't want obviously an increase in that type of crime. Actually, I think it's always really positive that people have taken that brief step to tell us about it and let us investigate it. So in terms of our investigations or our performance, this division do incredibly well round about the investigations of sexual crime. Probably one of the highest in the force, if I'm honest, to give you that reassurance. So there's really good contact with our partners in terms of that support, really good dedicated officers in the teams, you know, and it might be that there's, you know, domestic related assaults in amongst that actually, you know, we then will look at previous partners as well and tie all that together and try and encourage people to come forward. So for me it is a positive, although I appreciate and the cold facts of reading that it can be concerning, particularly for parents, in terms of that increase in sexual crime. But you know, in general terms, it is our more recent people coming forward that have finally found it one of to come and report it, know that they're going to be believed, and that we're going to do our best to bring that perpetrator to justice.
thanks for that.
Councillor Crowther, were you wanted to come in, Paul? No. Councillor Crowther?
Thank you, convener. It's more of a comment rather than a kind of question. It's just to say that our MP Ronnie Cowan, he had arranged naloxone training session, and it's actually good to see that many of the councillors have taken a can-do attitude and were in attendance. Those who attended also went away with the naloxone kits as well, which will either be in a rucksack, in the car, wherever we travel. But I have heard reports that a number of the kits are minus a needle. Has that affected the supply that Police Scotland has?
Yeah, so that's the first I've heard of. I've not had any issues at all with the kits. So I've not heard that at all. And I've been behind the officers getting the kits in Inverclyde, and I've never heard that. So I'll double check what you're saying about it.
Yeah.
But certainly not brought to my attention.
It may well be it's just a certain badge. which
Yeah.
apparently had one needle rather than two.
Yeah, it's used to be.
Okay.
Natasha, would you like to ask a question? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, convener. I have two questions. So before I ask these questions, I just want to say it's great to see that some of these crimes have actually decreased in this report. It's positive, and I think it shows to some of the good work that's been done. My two questions are around the number of missing people and the overall violent crime increasing. So my question about the missing people is, having read the report, I can see that 5 are the most frequently reported missing young people. If these people are repeatedly going missing, is there a team around the child, a team around the young person there, and is there a plan in place to try to stop this happening again? Because I can appreciate that's quite concerning for the caregiver of these young people, alongside obviously the resource that it must take up. And the other question I had was just around the overall violent crime. It's encouraging to see that some types of violent crime have decreased, but what do you think is, what do you think is contributing to the overall increase in it in this area?
I'll give you a couple of moments.
Thanks, Councillor. So to take your first point then in terms of miscarriages, our missing people, it's something that we set up a governance group round about our missing people because it is a real concern in terms of the volume of missing people that we are currently experiencing. As you can appreciate, we try and do what's called a return interview with a missing person, whether that be a child, teenager or an adult, to try and understand actually what was the reason for you going missing, where did you go, and it starts to build up a bit of an intelligence piece. Now, as you can imagine, not all missing people want to speak to us and provide that kind of information, and sometimes we look to parents, family, social workers, any care packages that are in place to be able to ask those questions on our behalf, because the last thing we want is somebody who's repeatedly going missing, primarily for their own safety, in terms of looking after them. So we very much try and build up that picture in terms of, particularly around about repeat missing people, to understand exactly what the reason is behind that and what changes can we make both collectively as a partnership in terms of whether it be child protection or adult support and protection to put in place to try and prevent, and if they're suffering from mental health issues, what else do we need to do with partners to ensure that they've got that support as opposed to becoming a missing person. Does that answer your question, Councillor?
Wholly, yeah.
So your second point in terms of violent crime, and I suppose that's a caveat in terms of we are comparing that with last year. Those figures, as I say, are skewed in terms of that increase in common assault, but quite a good decrease in terms of serious assault. I don't have any level of detail in terms of anything else round about that, Paul. I don't know if there's anything you can add to that context.
No, I mean, the violent crime is a whole mixture of things. I mean, I can sit here and say it's because of drugs, debts, foods, it will be all of that. Definitely will be all of that. And we do have a number of feuds that are ongoing in Inverclyde that we are dealing with, and quite a few of them are not out in the community at the moment. So it's a mixture of a whole bag of things. It's not one specific thing. It could be also just alcohol. People having too much alcohol and they get hit with a bottle or get hit with something else and it turns out to be a serious assault. So it is a whole mix. There isn't one particular thing in Inverclyde that's causing serious crime to go up. It's a whole mixture of different things, and a lot of it is indoors as well. So behind, what's not happening in the community, it's happening behind closed doors, which makes it really difficult for us to prevent that.
Thank you. I don't see anything in the chat. Sorry. Councillor, right ahead.
Thank you. Yeah. When I look at your report, I can compare it to the fire service. Fire service is able to distill some of their data down by ward. So I'm just wondering what reasons are for not doing that in yours, and whether that could be something that could be dealt with in a future report.
And actually, it's a really good point, Councillor. We've been in the process, and we've been aware of this already, in Scotland, despite our inception in 2013, don't have a single crime recording system at the moment. So that's due to roll out in the West in 2023. It's been rolled out in the North, it's in the East at the moment, and it'll move into the West next year. That will give us much better data in terms of how we extract that and be able to give you more qualitative data and provide probably better context is what we're hoping for, kind of longer term. So leave that with me and let me go back to the analyst and just see if there is anything else. I would also be interested in keeping in terms of your report, if there's anything else you would like to see in it, and perhaps we can discuss that at the table at our meeting in December. But I'm happy to take on suggestions from councillors and yourself in terms of how you would like that report formatted and what's going to work for you moving forward. I'm keen to give you the data that would work and help you in your goals.
Thank you. Paul?
Yeah, I'll just say the current format, the way it is laid out, because it was discussed some time ago now, and I know we've sitting there, we've overseen this when we looked at across the whole of Scotland, and we looked at how that was getting reported to other scrutiny boards, and we actually stole a lot of good ideas and made them better, and created our own ones. So that's how that came about. So it was ourselves in here that agreed on that. And can I just clarify one last thing? Just go back to the lock zone. So if the police use nasal sprays and not needles, that's fine.
Okay, that's fine.
That's from nasal sprays.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, that explains that,
It explains it. Yes, it does.
Thank you for that, Paul. Are you okay with that? That's fine. Good question. I don't see anybody on the chat. Oh, Provost. It's all yours.
One of the things said was that you don't see any obvious reason for the crime rate is. I've had representation from a number of sources recently about the lack of taxis late at night within Inverclyde, and the fear of safety thing of getting home, or people having to walk home and therefore getting embroiled in some sort of dispute. And I know this is nothing that you can probably do for this, but is it something that you recognise?
It's not only an issue in Inverclyde, it is a national issue and seems to stem from the pandemic, whereby people had, obviously there wasn't people out and about during the pandemic and they've changed their career choice at that point. Yes. So there is a real lack of taxi drivers actually on the road nationally, and it's something that features in the Violence Against Women and Girls portfolio that we've looked at in terms of making, trying to give advice in terms of make sure if you're going a night out, you've got a plan in place before you go in terms of how you're getting home to prevent any sort of incident. So I don't have a fix for you, but I know it is a national problem for Scotland at the moment.
Okay with that, Robert? Yep. I think it's a very relevant point. I think with regard to taxis, I know that SPT covers school transport for 12 councils. And we are struggling there with taxi drivers all over, from the borders to Helensburgh. Shortage of taxi drivers everywhere. Any other questions? Thank you for that. Thank you very much, both of you. You're at liberty to leave now if you want, because I know you're busy people and we need more people jailed out there, Paul. I dread to think what you could do in the next hour, let loose out there. But thank you very much. And again, I wish you all the very well and all the very best in the future. And welcome to Inverclyde, Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. We'll now move on to agenda item number 4, which I think is in the hands of Ross Scullion.
Yes, thank you, Convener. I'm presenting this paper on behalf of Hugh Scott today. The paper, it's a report that informs the panel of local and national initiatives, reviews, consultations, and where appropriate informs potential future agenda items. So just to move on to the first point, it's from the notes of the Scottish Police Authority Board. This includes several updates, including the information around the Violence Against Women seminar that was held to inform the future strategy from Police Scotland. There was also an update on the Forensic Services Toxicology Service. I know that was mentioned in the previous report in terms of the backlog, but there is progress being made on that. Reducing that backlog. I won't touch too much on the naloxone rollout. It's been covered already in this meeting. There's also the contact assessment model. So there was an HMICS published fair assurance review of that model, which is, again, comments on the progress made on the delivery of that model and how Police Scotland responds to individuals in terms of assessing the threat, the harm, the risk, the investigation. A further update was received at this meeting on the Confidence and Deprivation project from Police Scotland. So this is it's being piloted in Perth, and it's a project that seeks to work in areas of perhaps deprivation to reduce the poor perceptions of policing. So there's an update on that project. Aside from that meeting, the programme of government published in September proposes a bill to improve the transparency and further strengthen the public confidence in policing. So that bill will align recommendations made by Dame Eilish Angelini in her review of complaints handling. So they seek to improve police systems and structures which underpin the way complaints are received, managed, investigated. Further to that, Inverclyde Council has responded also to a request to review the Joint Strategic Police Plan for 2020 to 2023. We reviewed that and we were in broad agreement with where the key consideration issues were, such as the emerging issues of digital online safety and sexual crimes, the importance of a more person-centred early intervention approach, the community engagement to ensure that our seldom heard communities have a voice, the strong alignment and strategy with the Justice Vision, and how vital technology is for a modern police force to deal with crime, and also the concern around potential increase in crime associated with the rises in cost of living. I'll move on to the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service Board meeting. There was an evaluation of the Youth Volunteer Scheme, which was sought feedback from a number of volunteer youths who are participating in the scheme, and it was an evaluation of that scheme, how it was engaging with young people and recruiting young people. Also, I know this has been touched on already as well, but there was the campaign that the Scottish Fire and Rescue will be running through the winter as the weather turns colder. It's the Stay Fire Safe campaign, which is concerned with people seeking alternative ways of heating and lighting their homes, and it's to raise awareness across the UK in terms of the risks associated with that. Finally, at the last meeting, there was a request for council officers to meet to discuss the implications of removing the charge for a bulk uplift service to potentially reduce the risk of a build-up of combustible materials around properties. Council officers did meet, and the discussion led to the consideration of the implications of that would be financial implications for the council associated with the loss of income from that bulk uplift service, the resource implications for the council associated with an increase in service demand, and potentially that may actually have the opposite effect by increasing risk if there was an increase of fly tipping around properties, if there was an assumption made that the council would perhaps come and lift these materials rather than having to pay for that service. Yeah, I'm happy to take any questions on that paper.
Thank you, Ross. Colleagues, any questions? I don't see anything in the chat. No. Thank you very much for that report, Ross. We do appreciate it. We can now move on to agenda item number 5, This is a routine